commit to that. How many of you, when you hear the text this morning, would say that this is your favorite text of the entire Bible? This is a very, very hard text. And a lot of preachers would often shy away from preaching this kind of text. But it is here in the lectionary because as Christians, as people of faith, we need to confront this kind of very difficult text. How many of you, when you hear the second verse, whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even life itself cannot be my disciple. How many of you will say, yes, that's me? Discipleship for Luke the writer, putting this couch in the message of Jesus. Discipleship is very, very costly. And what Luke is saying to us is that before you think about joining this, becoming a part of this, you better count the cost. I am very challenged by this text because, like all of you, I love my family. I love my father, I love my mother. Even though they are no longer with me, I love my parents. I love my spouse, I love my children. I love my siblings, even though there are many times when I never agree with them. But especially in their theology. But I cannot say, in all honesty, that I'm able to bring myself to hate them to be a disciple. I am confronted with this very difficult notion. But Jesus goes on to say, there is a cost. How many of you, when you do something, would not begin to calculate the cost? We know, for example, the subprime, the back. A lot of people bought homes beyond their means because they were not counting the cost, because they were not expecting that economic bust. And so the whole housing market led the way in many ways to the economic problems and economic crisis we still find ourselves in. Counting cost is very important. Like many of you who own homes, there are times in this example that Jesus is talking about, when you want to build a tower or you want to renovate something, extend, you better count the cost, that you are able to pay the cost before you even begin the project. If not, you will find yourself stuck along the way. And for many of you who own homes, and when you begin to engage in a project, very often the cost that the contractor tells you is not really the final cost. You better think in terms of another 10-20% down the road before you even begin the kind of project. I have experienced that many times too. And Jesus is using this kind of examples to talk about signing on to discipleship. Signing on to discipleship. Because if you cannot follow through, don't join this group, Jesus said. What is Jesus calling his disciples into? Jesus is calling his disciples into a radical life, into a commitment that is unlike ours. You know, in the ancient Near Eastern world, family and land are the two most important things. Remember, take yourself back into the world of Jesus, the world of Luke, the gospel writer. It is not the same kind of world that we live in. The demands were very different. It was very much an agrarian society, an agricultural-based society, and everything is tied to the land and the family. And so one's primary commitment, primary loyalty is always to the land and to the family. That is how life is lived. But what is Jesus saying here? Jesus is saying to his disciples, introducing to his disciples a very radical, a new thinking about family. How many of you have heard the term family of choice? It is becoming more and more significant because of a lot of people have problems with their families. And they rather choose people, if they can, to be family rather than the biological family. In a way, the call of Jesus was into a family of choice, a surrogate family, where people are willing to commit themselves fully to a family, to this new family. If you are part of a family, you know how to take care of a family. You will not be concerned about not providing for the family. And so the challenge that Jesus is giving to the new construction of family is the same idea. If you want to be part of this new family, there is a cost to it. There is a cost to it. In order that the family is provided for. Luke uses this sense of the new construction of family over and over again in his gospel writings. Read that through. For example, at one point in chapter 9, Luke has Jesus saying that he does not come to create harmony for everyone, right? But to set father against father, father against son, brother against brother, so on and so forth. Why? Because your biological family may no longer be where your loyalty is. It is the new family, the surrogate family. Another story that Jesus told, that Luke tells us, about Jesus' conversation with the rich young ruler. And this young ruler has observed everything in his life. And Jesus affirmed him in his practices. But in order to be a disciple, what did Jesus tell the rich young ruler to do? Go sell everything and give it away, if you want to be a part of this family. And the young ruler went away, not willing to make that contract. It is not possible for any one of us to sell everything and become a disciple of Jesus Christ. None of us can even come close to that. But it is a question of our life's priorities and our loyalty. How important isn't the basic question that Jesus is asking of all of us? How important is this discipleship for you? Is becoming a disciple of Jesus Christ, becoming a family together, is this something we do when we have the time? At the end of calculating everything, we have a couple of hours to spare. Then we come and fellowship and be part of this discipleship. Is that how it is? Is our family life standing in the way of discipleship? Is our work, our careers, standing in the way of our discipleship? Is our hobby standing in the way of discipleship? Is discipleship something that we are willing to commit in only when we have time? The cost of discipleship is not a small matter for us to do if we're serious about what we are called to do. I cringe, my friends, every time I read these words, because like many of you, I am never ever sure that I can measure up to the challenges of this calling that has been extended to you and extended to all of us. But what we can do is to keep journeying on. Keep recognizing that we have fallen short and willing always to do better. I remember when Wendy was talking about herself and her sense of calling into discipleship and the cost to engage in this discipleship. Especially when Wendy was talking about her parents not understanding what really was she getting into. That's counting the cost of discipleship. I remember too, when Pastor Emily was preaching one Sunday and talked about John Wesley. And how John Wesley decided very early on in his life that he's going to set aside enough for his own life and make sure that others are taken care of. That's counting the cost of discipleship, my friends. How are we responding to this call of discipleship? Knowing that we will always fall short of the gospel demand to carry the cross and come follow Jesus. to sell all we have, to come follow Jesus. As we journey on in this life of faith, in this life of discipleship, what cost are we willing to bear to be a disciple of Jesus Christ? To live a radically transformed a life that Jesus had called us to. As we come to fellowship with one another, as we come to the Lord's table, I invite you to come just as you are. Fallen human beings, always in the need of the grace of God. Always ready and willing to be transformed by God's love and God's grace. Amen.
As we go over these words, let us take a deep breath together. And I invite everybody in the congregation to just turn to one another and greet one another